The starless night over Siberia was pierced by the eerie glow of alien technology as the Mizoan ship descended towards the secret rendezvous point. General Viktor Volkov stood stoically as the vessel touched down with barely a whisper. The ship's hatch opened, revealing the reptilian form of Ambassador Zendril. His scales shimmered in the harsh floodlights as he approached the human delegation. "Greetings," Zendril's voice rasped. "I trust you have fulfilled your end of our agreement?" Volkov nodded grimly. "The subjects are ready for transfer, as promised. Now, about the technology you offered." Zendril's lipless mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Of course. Our engineers are prepared to begin the installation immediately." As if on cue, a team of Mizoan technicians emerged from the ship, carrying cases of advanced equipment. Meanwhile, a line of transport vehicles approached from the darkness, carrying the human volunteers, political dissidents, prisoners, and others whose disappearance wouldn't raise too many alarms. The Chinese knew contact had been made and were even present when the deal was struck, but their only presence at the actual transaction was a spy watching from a distance. The Russians would share with them on their own terms as they had always done, knowing full well if the Chinese could have done this trade behind the Russians' back, they would have. Zendril's head bobbed, and what the humans had learned was an affirmative gesture. "Indeed. Our defensive systems are far beyond anything the Busner possesses. With these, you'll be able to protect your territories and perhaps expand them." As the exchange proceeded, none of the human leaders noticed the subtle glances exchanged between the Mizoan crew, or the way Zendril's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. The technology they were providing was advanced by human standards, certainly, but it was far from their best. Just enough to keep these Earth factions dependent on Mizoan assistance, but not enough to truly threaten the Busner. Hours later, as the Mizoan ship departed with its human cargo, the Axis leaders watched with a mixture of hope and unease. They had crossed a line, trading their own people for alien technology. But in the face of the Busner threat and the Western Alliance's growing power in space, what choice did they have? On the lunar surface, the newly reconstructed colony buzzed with activity. Mining operations had finally reached full capacity, with massive excavators carving into the regolith to extract precious helium-3 and critical elements. Colonel Sarah Mitchell stood in the control center, watching as the latest shipment of resources was loaded onto a transport bound for the orbital station. "Production report, Lieutenant," she called out. Lieutenant Jack Morrison responded promptly. "We're operating at 98% efficiency, ma'am. The new Molnari-inspired drills are performing beyond expectations. At this rate, we'll meet our quotas well ahead of schedule. The new resource processing station is up and running. We are still working out the kinks, but we are ready for the first asteroid from the prospector." Mitchell nodded, allowing herself a small smile. "Excellent. And the life support systems?" "Stable and improving, Colonel," Morrison replied. "The hydroponics labs are now producing 20% of our food requirements and 60% of our oxygen. We're well on our way to self-sufficiency." As Mitchell turned her gaze to the Earth hanging in the black sky, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. They had rebuilt from the ashes of the Busner attack, and now the lunar colony was not just surviving, but thriving. The lunar system was a hive of industrial activity. Mining and resource processing and storage on the moon. Finished processed goods were stored briefly and then sent to the lunar colony plant for small production items or sent to the lunar orbital station for large projects. A healthy surplus was kept as processed materials for when the Busner returned. Everyone hated it, but their demands would have to be met for now. Station Commander David Chen floated through the manufacturing center, marveling at the efficiency of the operation. Robotic arms guided by AI systems worked as a one-stop production plant. Earth's new fleet would be born here in the Mars station that was almost a twin. "Status update," he called out to his chief engineer. Dr. Emily Takahashi's voice came through his comm. "We're operating at peak capacity, Commander. Our next XSV-1 should be built within the year. We are holding open one production bay so the Defiant or Audacity can be retrofitted immediately on return. The third production bay is still under production." Chen nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "Well done, Doctor. How are we looking on the Prometheus project components?" As Chen watched a shuttle depart for Earth, laden with precious metals and advanced components, he felt a sense of accomplishment. The lunar operations were becoming the backbone of humanity's space efforts, a crucial link in the chain that would secure their future among the stars. This was never going to be profitable, but some of the asteroids that had been processed had generated tons of silver and gold already. Millions of kilometers away, The Mars colony was undergoing its own renaissance. The dome-covered settlement had expanded significantly, with new habitation modules and research facilities sprouting up across the red planet's surface. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, chief scientist of the Mars mission, stood at the viewport of the primary dome, watching as the first Martian mining vehicles trundled across the dusty landscape. "How are the mineral surveys coming along?" she asked her assistant. Dr. Carl Robertson consulted his tablet. "Extremely promising, Dr. Tanaka. We've identified several sites rich in critical elements. And the subsurface water ice deposits are more extensive than we initially thought. It's good news for both resource extraction and long-term habitability." Tanaka nodded, her eyes still fixed on the Martian horizon. As Tanaka contemplated the long-term implications of their work, her comm unit chimed. It was a message from the orbital station. In Martian orbit, the reconstructed station had been expanded and upgraded. Like its lunar counterpart, it was now a key manufacturing center. It had less manufacturing capacity than the lunar orbital station since it had a resource processing center built into it. Station Director Alan Kent reviewed the latest production reports with a sense of satisfaction. The refined materials from Mars would soon be making their way back to Earth, fueling the next generation of spacecraft and advanced technologies. As he watched the first interplanetary transport ship dock with the station, Kent couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. They were witnessing the birth of a true solar system-wide economy, with Mars playing a crucial role in humanity's expansion into space. Back in Earth orbit, the Defiant glided towards the lunar station, its hull bearing the scars of its long journey through uncharted space. Captain Michael Davis stood on the bridge, a mix of relief and anticipation on his face as the familiar sight of the moon grew larger on the view screen. "Begin docking procedures," he ordered, then turned to his science officer. "Lieutenant Foster, make sure all our data is ready for transfer. The eggheads back home are going to want every scrap of information we've collected." As the Defiant locked into the station's docking clamps, Davis couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed in their absence. The lunar station had grown significantly, with new modules and construction bays extending in every direction. Admiral Victoria Hayes was immediately notified of their return and was waiting on video conference as soon as the captain entered the briefing room. "Welcome back, Captain. I trust your mission was productive?" Davis nodded. "More than we could have hoped, Admiral. We've contacted a species called the Sarani. They've had their own run-ins with the Busner. And we've gathered intel on several other civilizations in our sector of the galaxy. My comm officer should have already uploaded it to the station to be sent down to you." Hayes's eyebrows rose as she scanned the preliminary report. "This is impressive work, Captain. Your crew has earned some well-deserved rest. In the meantime, we'll be upgrading the Defiant with some of our latest tech. When you ship out again, you'll be carrying the best Earth has to offer." Davis returned to his ship so he could watch teams of engineers swarm over it. He didn't think he would be getting any rest. Stealth coding and a new comm system were a lot to go over. The rest of the crew was given leave. No one knew how long they would be gone this next trip out. Light years away, the Audacity dropped out of wormhole travel into the Naxath home system. Captain Emily Shaw stood on the bridge, her posture tense as alien signals began flooding their communication channels. "Opening hailing frequencies," announced Lieutenant Richard Baker. "The translator is having a bit of trouble, but it's adapting quickly." The view screen flickered to life, revealing an insectoid being with compound eyes and mandibles that clicked as it spoke. "Greetings, vessel from Earth. I am Trade Overseer Naxath. We have been expecting you." Shaw stepped forward, keeping her voice steady. "Greetings, Trade Overseer. I'm Captain Emily Shaw of the Earthship Audacity. We come seeking friendship and mutual exchange." Naxath's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Shaw hoped was a positive gesture. "Your arrival is most fortuitous, Captain Shaw. We have much to discuss, particularly in light of recent galactic developments." Over the next several hours, Shaw and her crew found themselves engaged in a whirlwind of negotiations and cultural exchanges. The Naxath, it turned out, were master traders with a vast network of economic ties throughout the sector. "We have been observing your species for some time," Naxath explained during a private meeting with Shaw. "Your resilience in the face of the Busner incursion is impressive. We believe a partnership between our peoples could be mutually beneficial." Shaw leaned forward, intrigued. "What kind of partnership did you have in mind?" Naxath's compound eyes seemed to glitter. "We can offer you access to our trade networks and certain technologies that might prove useful in your current situation. In exchange, we seek access to your Cradle System's wormhole access points. As the negotiations proceeded, Shaw couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. The Naxath offer could open new avenues for Earth's economic and technological development, providing them with resources and allies they desperately needed. By the time the Audacity prepared to depart, laden with samples of Naxath technology and databanks full of valuable economic intelligence, Shaw felt a renewed sense of hope. They had found not just trading partners, but potential long-term allies in the complex web of galactic politics. Back on Earth, in the depths of Area 51, alarms blared as smoke filled one of the primary research labs. Dr. Elena Reyes coughed violently as she was helped from the room by security personnel. "What happened?" demanded General Thomas Blackwood as he strode into the observation area, his face a mask of concern and frustration. Dr. Reyes, still catching her breath, shook her head. "The prototype. The containment field collapsed. We thought we had solved the power regulation issues, but..." She gestured helplessly at the smoldering remains of what had been their most advanced energy weapons experiment. Blackwood's jaw clenched. "Casualties?" "No fatalities," Reyes replied, relief evident in her voice. "A few minor injuries, but nothing serious. It could have been much worse." As cleanup crews moved in to secure the damaged lab, Blackwood turned to Reyes. "How much does this set us back?" Reyes ran a hand through her soot-streaked hair. "Weeks, maybe months. We'll need to redesign the containment systems from scratch." "I'm sorry, sir. We were so close." Blackwood placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll get there, Doctor. This is just a setback. Your team has already accomplished more than anyone thought possible. Take the time you need to do it right. We can't afford another incident like this." As Reyes nodded and moved off to begin the arduous process of rebuilding their work, Blackwood stared through the observation window at the destroyed lab. The path to the stars was proving to be more difficult and dangerous than anyone had imagined. But they had no choice but to press on. The future of humanity depended on it. In labs and shipyards across the Earth and throughout the solar system, humanity continued its frantic race to catch up with the galactic community. New alliances were forged, technologies developed, and difficult choices made. The Busner threat still loomed large, but with each passing day, each new breakthrough and connection made, the people of Earth were becoming better prepared to face the challenges that lay ahead. The galaxy had thrown down the gauntlet, and humanity was rising to meet it, for better or for worse.